Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, June 7th of 2023. The board was in an executive session that started 5:30 p.m. to discuss matters of the employment history of particular persons, potential litigation, and to receive advice from counsel, subject to board approval. Can I have a motion to reopen the public meeting at 7:03? Kaylee, second. Hillary, all in favor?
Aye.
Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a bigger flag.
I know. First of all, I just want to say that I hope everyone is staying as safe as possible given the current air conditions that we are experiencing in this area. As you know, the wildfires in Canada is causing us to experience very dangerous air quality here on the East Coast. We've gotten hit hard. I know that school had to close a little bit early today because of circulation in the classrooms and the way we circulate air, and it comes in from the outside, so that caused us to be err on the side of caution after speaking with our medical professionals that advise us. But we are hoping that this blows out of here fast.
Right, and I had sent a communication out. We're going to open tomorrow, but I just encourage if parents and our staff are concerned, they should wear masks tomorrow. Unless the Department of Health issues some guidance saying that we shouldn't open, we plan on opening, but we most likely won't be outside at all.
Yeah, we had to curtail activities, and as a result, actually, we were going to honor the Seven Bridges Science Olympiad team, and they're not here with us tonight, but we're very, very proud of how they did in the States. And as I stated, we started our executive session early tonight at 5:30, and that is because at 6 o'clock we had a very nice reception here. We had to do a quick changeover, so thank you to everyone who made that happen. We were honoring our retirees from the district, and that is always a special event, always bittersweet for us because we have a lot of colleagues that we will miss seeing and students that will miss seeing their faces every day in our schools. We're very appreciative of their years of service, and we wish all of them a very happy, healthy, enjoyable, and still active and productive retirement. And we will continue to have a busy night. We will be having a presentation coming up about the results from our recent strategic planning efforts. This is something the district undertakes every 5 years. We've been working on this throughout the year in order to have a framework within which to guide the district forward for the next 5 years. Jonathan Costa from Ed Advance will be here to go over that with everyone. We'll also be reviewing the results of our recent safety and security survey, and Christine will go over that during the superintendent's report. June is a very busy month here, as all of you know. Lots of good stuff happening and coming up. We did just have the senior musical this past weekend. I know Mamma Mia was a great success. I happened to be out of town and missed it, but I hear wonderful things. So many thanks to the PTA and all the parents and students and everyone who made that annual tradition so fun and successful, and also a successful fundraiser for the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund, which it is every year. This week's senior activities continue with prom tomorrow, the senior award ceremony next week, graduation on the 17th, and Father's Day on the 18th. So I will wish a happy Father's Day in advance to all of our wonderful dads out there. I know Dr. Ackerman will give a rundown of all the upcoming events and a lot of other stuff in the superintendent's report. So I'm going to pass this along to her to get started with tonight's agenda.
Do you want to adopt the calendar?
Yes. Oh, that's right. We have a special thing under President's report tonight. 1.1.1, and that is our adoption of the 2023-2024 Board of Education meeting schedule. So can I have a motion to adopt next year's meeting schedule? I will note, and you'll see that the time is moving to 7 p.m. next year. Just for people, we started early tonight. We will be starting early next year. So can I have a motion for 1.1.1? Ryan, can I have a second? Any questions, comments?
So
Yes.
going to 7 o'clock, how is that going to impact the community? I mean, we initially had meetings at 8 o'clock, we moved them to 7:30. I guess what's the reasoning for moving to 7 o'clock?
Yeah, I'm recommending we move to 7 because we have student presentations, and I'm just trying to be cognizant of kids and elementary students being here, and if we can adjust the time so they can get home earlier, I'd like us to do that. If we start to get feedback that this is problematic, then the board can always change it. So that's why initially I'd asked the new board if they were okay with the 7 o'clock start time.
And the new board's okay with that? Okay.
Okay. So all in favor of 1.1.1?
Yes.
Aye. Okay.
All right, so thank you. As Jane had mentioned in the president's report, tonight is the night. We've been working on our strategic plan for over a course of a year, and I'd like to welcome Jonathan Costa up to the front, and he will be presenting an overview of what our strategic plan will look like for the next 5 years. We started this process when I first came to Chappaqua to really work together with our teachers and our administrators and our staff and our students and our families to find out, what would we collectively like the district to be focused on for areas of growth or improvement. And so we've completed our first strategic plan, and we presented on our progress at our previous meeting. And so tonight, Jonathan will be sharing what we'll be working on in the future, and we've set it up a little bit differently, because we feel like we've evolved, and so we would like our plan to be more defined by level, so everyone is has a deeper understanding of what our elementary school program, what our middle school program, what our high school program, and what our district office will be focused on. So I'm going to pass that down to Jonathan, and I'm going to welcome him here, and I'm going to turn it over, and just so our community knows, we'll be pushing this out at some point, either Friday or Monday, to our a wider audience, so they have an understanding of what our focus is moving forward. So Jonathan?
Thank you, Christine. We did we last completed the plan in 2018, and as everyone might remember, in the intervening years there was a pandemic, and it's just good to remember that, because as much as you plan, things happen. And as another example, halfway through this plan process, the latest earthquake hit, and that's in the form of artificial intelligence, and it's going to ripple through this plan and just about everybody else's plan as well. So when we say we're doing a strategic plan, we are setting a strategic course and a strategic vision, but we're flexible and adaptable because things happen and things change, and we recognize that and try to build that into the process. So this time around, I'd like to thank all the folks that were involved in doing the work. Everyone on that screen, including members of the board, Kaylee, Ryan, and Hillary, were there almost every meeting, met once a month starting in September, wrapping up just last month. And these folks gave about 50 hours of their time, and the board and the public and I am very appreciative of all the work that they did. In all of our work, even in 2018, the planning goal is to ensure that every Chappaqua student is prepared for life, learning, and work beyond school. And we spend a lot of time thinking about the various systems of work that help support that, the leadership and vision of the district, the way we set goals for learning for students, how we build a supportive instructional environment, how we measure our progress, and the supporting systems that drive success toward that goal. For this time around, we used a 3-phase process. The first was a fairly extensive data collection, building off the success of the 2018 strategic plan. And in those 3 phases, we first did that data collection. We'll show you a little bit about that. We reached out to the community. We looked at internal and external indicators of success. We then analyzed and synthesized that collected data and set priorities, and then planned for the work to be done. And that is what we'll go over at this point. I wanted to just very quickly show you what the data collection points were. Internally, we did look at that goal systems alignment. We looked at management indicators of success. These are sort of internal performance indicators. We looked at instructional support indicators, those things that are most likely to help students learn in the classroom, and learning indicators themselves, student performance, alignment of measures with priorities, balancing formative and assessment, and looking at the consistency of our approach internally. Externally, we looked at what's coming, mandates and legislation. As a good example of this, we have the electric bus mandate. That was one thing that if you don't start thinking about that, you're going to get caught short on it. These were the kinds of things we were looking to anticipate. Any anticipated economic or demographic changes in the district, and the ongoing impacts of the digital age in the post-pandemic era, including the rollout of 5G and artificial intelligence, and any other general challenges or opportunities that we saw in the environment looking forward. We also reached out to the public in the form of a thought exchange, in which we asked a very open-ended question about what the public thought would be our most important planning priorities. We had just over 1,300 people participate in that. They contributed almost 1,000 thoughts, and individual ratings occurred almost 50,000 times. So it was a very good, broad representation of the community in collecting additional data points that we filtered in addition to the 8 different categories that I just shared with you. In that thought exchange, you may not be able to read that size of that print, but there was a pretty consistent reaction in the community. The highest rated thought was, please listen to our thoughts, essentially. Folks wanted to be heard. And the second highest rated thought was about making learning exciting, foster curiosity, teach critical thinking and problem solving. Both of those, that first thought averaged 4.3 out of 5. The second, the ensure engaging instruction averaged 4.2 out of 5. And the third highest was make academics our #1 priority again. Budget should be spent on teachers, smaller classrooms. The next 3 highest rated thoughts, keep a commitment to stronger academics, build a well-rounded curriculum, and ensure that we have the best possible staff in our community. So there was a very strong sentiment that the community needs to maintain its commitment to high quality schools and the traditional performance expectations that folks who come to Chappaqua have come to expect. And that message really was received loud and clear by the committee. In processing all of that together, the committee essentially drafted 15 potential responses. When all of the data was collected, this entire range of possible goals and priorities were generated by the team. And when we looked at it overall, it was synthesized into 5 general areas of priority. So for the next 5 years, if everything goes the way we think, the 5 biggest priorities are to improve the student sense of belonging in the district, to rethink traditional curriculum. And the second priority is attention, because it's clear that the community wants to maintain traditional success, but everything that we see in the learning environment points to challenges to those practices being a guarantee of future success. The learning environment, the future of economic opportunity is being transformed as we speak by a range of different technology and economic drivers. And so there will need to be shifts in teaching and learning to meet those needs, to ensure that students are prepared for the world they will enter when they leave. And as a way to think about this, your entering kindergartners next year are the class of 2036. How are we preparing them? What will the world look like then? So there's going to be a lot of work done in how do we maintain the academic excellence in the district and the traditional success enjoyed by Chappaqua amidst this really dramatic change in the external environment. There was a strong desire to look at the middle school experience to ensure a smooth transition from elementary to high school. There was a lot of talk about trying to tighten or rethink that middle school experience. Talent management and professional capacity. There is a national challenge around recruitment of teachers, around maintaining and ensuring you have the talent you need to meet these challenges. And finally, to modernize systems and to think about ways that you can raise the revenue and meet the challenges of this next generation of teaching and learning. When you take those 5 strategic priorities, what we then did was think about the strategies in those 5 areas that affect everyone in the district. And then, as Christine said, what are specific to the elementary, middle, and high school levels. And that's the way this plan is going to look as the public experiences it. So at the district level, we're looking at responses to those 5 priorities that look at different ways of generating the revenue that are going to be required to meet these challenges, to get more in touch with alumni, to revise the profile Greeley graduate to be grounded in student literacies, enhancing talent management, aligning hiring, evaluation, and PD, and developing a more systemic communication strategy for the district to keep the public informed and engaged. Plan for that future fiscal sustainability in those strategic areas. Ensure personalized professional learning. There's going to be a lot of pressure on teachers to meet these expectations. They need help, they need support. Many of these practices are not what they were trained for. How do we help them build that capacity to ensure that they can be consistently the best in the profession? Continue to assess and improve safety procedures, responsibly integrate emerging technologies. And that's really important because there is a wave of new technology. In all of it, it can be used for great good, but there are also challenges. Let's be sure we integrate it appropriately to support the curriculum and support the outcomes that we want for students, support the continued development of space and enhance its instruction, data systems and dashboards to improve the information availability so we can make more timely, impactful decisions, and reduce the use of the fund balance during the budget development process. Those are all district-wide strategies. More focused specifically on the elementary level, increase student sense of belonging, create a demographic study of elementary boundaries. There is a sense that we're going to need to think about where the boundaries are for the elementary schools to ensure equal balance in those schools. Look at offering world languages K4 in a more robust way. Revise student report cards to align with the skill-based literacies curriculum and reflect our STEAM benchmarks. Evaluate data systems to support the MTSS process and student growth. Research-based and data-informed instruction. Ensure curriculum fidelity with appropriately cycled curriculum and focus on writing rigor and intensity across all subject areas. Those are elementary school targets. At the middle school level, also increase student sense of belonging. And the list of strategies within that is longer because middle school is a particularly challenging time just to be a human being. And there are specific challenges to that developmental range, and we need to be appropriately focused on that to ensure a smooth transition to the upper level. The Princeton plan analysis for the middle level, this is a pretty comprehensive analysis of the entire middle school program to get more information about how to improve that phase of education here in Chappaqua. Also at the middle level, evaluate data systems to support the MTSS process and student growth, and revise world language and program of study based on those elementary shifts. So to pick up where the a more robust elementary world language program leaves kids, we don't want them to then not be challenged by the world language program at the middle school. So how do we recreate that so we're sure for a smooth transition? Increase the rigor of 5 to 7 to align with 8th grade shifts and ensure that 5th grade program alignment. So you can see a lot of work in terms of aligning instruction, elementary, middle to high, to ensure that smoother K-12 continuum in instruction. And finally, at the high school level, again, increase student sense of belonging. That is obviously a theme through all the levels, just the strategies are different because students in those grade levels are different. Ensure that the 9th and 10th grade experiences are rigorous. Create a state-of-the-art STEAM curriculum for state-of-the-art learning spaces. Evaluate data systems to support MTSS process and student growth. And again, revise world language program for student-based elementary shifts. Many of these themes are consistent K-12, but the outcomes will be different based on the level that you're working at, elementary, middle, and high. It is overall a very ambitious plan, but it is reflective of the data we created and the input of the entire committee. In fact, after the priorities were identified in March, we spent 2 whole sessions, everybody working on all of those 5 priority areas to create those strategies, to review them, to enhance them, to create the plan that you just were exposed to. The next steps, Christine and her staff are going to prioritize and sequence the strategies to ensure capacity and timing do not overwhelm daily practice. There's a lot of work to be done and people are already very busy. So how and when some of those strategies will take place will be at the design of central office to ensure it can be managed and incorporated well and not overwhelm folks who are already working really hard. That sequencing will lead to annual work plans and aligned building specific improvement plans over time. And those priorities and plans may be adapted, as I said, given the rapidly changing learning environment. So I think you have a strong strategic vision and path and a strong set of priorities and a well-designed framework to move forward. It is ambitious, but having worked in the district since 2017, I know the talent around the table can handle it. That's it.
There's one more slide, Jonathan. You're
One more.
yes.
I get to see you with your dog.
I cannot be in a room without a gratuitous dog reference, so I apologize, but you can't be sad when you look at a puppy licking you. So.
So did the board, everyone here has been a part of this process since the beginning. I didn't know if the board had any final comments or questions or anything they'd like to share with the community before we transition to our next presentation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I found this to be a really interesting and frankly enjoyable experience. You know, this is the first plan like this I've had the opportunity to work on, and I thought it was really an interesting approach to look at the district so holistically and so comprehensively. And I think that we've identified the key issues, but also the key, I think, tensions between wanting to make sure that we maintain the rigor of our academic program and even, you know, where it seems appropriate, increase the rigor of our academic program and make sure our kids are prepared, while balancing that prepared doesn't look today like prepared looked 10, 15 years ago, and probably doesn't look the same as it will even 5 years from now, so that just having the flexibility in how we teach and what we teach to make sure that we're maintaining that level of rigor while the world changes rapidly around us is certainly challenging, but it was really, really interesting to hear the perspective of everybody involved, our faculty, our staff, our parents, on how we accomplish that, and we're all clearly very much committed to the same goal. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see how this plays out.
Yeah. And that tension is really clear in the data. I mean, I think it's obvious that people are attracted to Chappaqua because of its traditional history of excellence and high performance. The great challenge is assuming that all of the things that created that in the past are the same things that will allow it to continue in the future. And all of the adults in the room experienced the strategies of the traditional experience, and that's what they expect. So there is a tension and a gap as we try to adjust and change for a future that we know will be different. Some of those strategies are going to seem different from what others experienced when they were in school. And we always want to maintain the tradition of excellence, but sometimes that excellence is going to look different because the product needs to look different. And that's a challenge, and we'll just need to keep communicating and being open and honest about what we're doing and why.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so Hillary said it was her first. This is my second strategic plan, so thank you very much, Jonathan.
Sure.
I think leading a strategic search plan is very beneficial for the district. You know, it helps us lay down a direction with which we can find and go. As things change, I know of the last strategic plan, we've made changes on the fly.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. You mentioned that. But I think it's always good to have a framework with which the administration and the board and the community can look at and say, this is where we think we want to go. So thank you very much for leading us for us.
My pleasure. And the whole second strategy bucket is really a recognition of that tension. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know from working with your administration that they are all acutely aware of those challenges. Adam, Joshua, I mean, they understand it and are going to work to try to maintain both positive outcomes, but understand the impacts that these changes are having. And it's changing really quickly. The pace of what artificial intelligence is doing to the future of economic opportunity, to the way teachers work, to the way students work, it is going to be dramatic. It really is.
Well, like Warren, I was part of the last strategic plan, and we also did one for the athletic department, and it's been really, really helpful to set a framework and very clear goals, knowing you can't achieve every single thing that you want,
Yep.
but it is a pathway forward. And we had started this in the fall, and then I remember when Jonathan came in right after ChatGPT was released, and we were all like, please tell us about this. And we grabbed Josh, and we're trying to figure this out, how this was going to change the face of education and assessments and work and knowledge and all of that. And what everyone here has been focused on is preparing our students for the world that will greet them when they leave here. And that is changing very rapidly. And there is a huge balance between the rigor and the pace and making sure that they are really well prepared academically and also socially and emotionally.
Yes.
And that is something that really did come out on how to balance that, how to balance the stressors, how to make them feel that whatever changes come along, they can deal with them. And so I think everyone is very committed to making sure that we are listening to our students. And we did have student voices in the room,
Yep.
and we had parents in the room telling us in real time what their kids at home were dealing with. You have the administrators knowing what they have mandated by the state and what's going on in the classrooms. And so, it was a big melting pot of everything. And I think that I know that this administrative team will be trying to push all of these forward, while they're balancing out a lot of competing interests. But it's great to have the document, and it's great to have the work, and it's good to see how people really feel about all these, varying influences on our kids. So thank you.
Yep.
I would just like to mention, explore is different than implement. And so there's things on here that we're exploring. Like, we're doing a demographic study. We're going to look at, through a study with an outside agency, whether or not it makes sense to move to the Princeton model at Seven Bridges and Bell, which would mean 5-6 would be in one building and 7-8 would be in the other. It doesn't mean we're going to do that, but we are going to explore it and talk about it and gather input along the way. We are going to look at adding foreign language in the elementary school, but that's not immediate. We have to budget for it. So this is a 5-year plan, that has a lot of ambitious work embedded within it, which is excellent and great, but I don't want to give the misconception or the wrong impression that these things are immediate and they're going to happen. It's what we're focused on. And so we are going to keep the community informed along the way as we partner together to do this work and make decisions based on the feedback and the assessment of the data that we did through this process that has us analyzing whether or not these models or shifts in our boundaries make sense for the district, but that's not a decision that we're making today. That's going to be a process, and you will have plenty of time to give us input throughout that process as we move forward and really flush out whether or not that makes sense for us as a district. So, any other questions for Jonathan? I'd like to just take an opportunity to thank everyone that participated. This is a long process. There's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of side meetings. And so I want to thank our PTA, CSF, our faculty, K through 12 who participated, our administrators, our central office staff. We had a really big team. And of course, I want to thank Jonathan. We'll see you in another 5 years, or maybe sooner. But I do want to thank everyone who participated in this process. And of course, everyone who engaged in the thought exchange. That went to all of our secondary, I think it went to our high school students, definitely.
Yep.
All of our community members and all of our faculty. So for those of you who weren't in the room, thank you for contributing to the space by placing your comments in the survey format. So thank you for that. So thank you, Jonathan, very much. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much,
We appreciate it.
Jonathan.
Okay, so we're going to move into the community update. I'm just going to mention a few things before we start to talk about safety and security. And I just want to begin by acknowledging Seven Bridges and the Science Olympians. They were supposed to be here tonight. We had a whole thing planned in the gym, and then this weather event happened. And so I just want to congratulate our students again. Our next meeting is right on the back end of moving up, so I'm not really sure when we would be able to schedule something like this, but I'll work with Dr. Mazza and talk about if there is a different moment at a different time where we can plan forward and do some of what we wanted to show you tonight in the gym. But again, I want to extend my gratitude to the PTA for supporting and sponsoring our Science Olympiad team, for Sky, our faculty member who went to Kansas, and all of our parents for taking our kids there to really have an amazing experience. So thank you again. And I am sorry we had to cancel this evening, but we had to do what we had to do because of the weather. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank them. Now we have our district equity policy on the agenda. This is a brand new policy to us. And tonight is the first reading. And this is the first time we're really adding a policy to the district in a very long time. And this came from a recommendation from the equity audit based on what our staff were feeling like they needed to help support the DEI work that was happening throughout the district. So the policy committee, Ryan, Hillary, and I met with Kia from Insight, and we worked together to draft something that was based in the NYSBA school board's recommended policy language around equity considerations for school district, but we kind of shaped it into our own. So tonight is the first reading, so I'm just going to read through it, and then when we get to that section of the agenda, we can consider any board feedback or any questions, and then the community will have an opportunity to give us feedback before we come to the next meeting with our second reading. So it's policy 0130, and basically it is, here it is. So the Board of Education is committed to creating and maintaining a positive and inclusive learning environment where all students, especially those currently and historically marginalized, feel safe, included, welcome, and accepted, and experience a sense of belonging and academic success. The Board of Education and the Chappaqua Central School District accept responsibility for moving forward on this journey and committing time, energy, and resources to develop a more equitable, inclusive, diverse, and welcoming environment for all students, parents, and staff. Generally accepted beliefs and agreements. All children deserve to have an equitable access to opportunity. This is a right. This right is fundamental to our K through 12 educational program and is extended to everyone without exception. However, the district also recognizes that students have been historically marginalized due to inequities associated with aspects of their identities and their contexts, including but not limited to race, color, weight, national origin, ethnic groups, religion, religious practice, disability, sex, sexual orientation, or gender, including gender identity and expression. Racism, discrimination, and marginalization of any people or groups of people, whether intentional or not, has no place in our school community. Such actions damage not only those individuals and groups at which they are directed, but also our school community as a whole. We are committed to addressing these inequities and helping each and every student equitably access learning opportunities in school to enable them all to thrive and to build a better society. Okay, goals. The goal of the Chapakua Central School District is to provide equitable, inclusive, and diverse opportunities for all students to reach their potential. To achieve educational equity, the district acknowledges the cultural diversity of our students and the need for students to find relevant connections amongst themselves, the subject matter, and the tasks teachers ask them to perform. District will develop the individual and organizational knowledge, attitudes, skills, and practices to create culturally responsive learning environments that nurture and support high academic achievement for students. Differences will be seen as strengths that are nourished, celebrated, and welcomed. In order to truly realize this goal, it is imperative that the Board of Education and the Chapakua Central School District administration and faculty be fully conversant in the historical injustices and inequities that have shaped our society and recognize and eliminate the institutional barriers, including racism and biases that contribute to the pervasive and disparate outcomes. The superintendent or designee will ensure that the curriculum and instructional materials reflect the board's commitment to educational equity. Curriculum and instructional materials for all grades shall reflect diversity and include a range of perspectives and experiences, particularly those of historically underrepresented groups. All curriculum materials shall be examined for bias and historical accuracy. Instructional activities, cultural enrichment opportunities, and extracurricular programming will be provided for students that foster respect for the values embedded in this policy. There should in this policy. There is a district equity team, and shall be a district equity team and a school equity team in each building. The DET and the SETs will assist in developing and implementing specific prevention initiatives, including the adoption and revision of policies and implementation of practices designed to promote diversity, prevent discrimination, assure equitable access to high quality educational staff, facilities and materials, and to maximize outcomes for all students. Okay, last page. Equity policy communication. To be successful in this endeavor, it is imperative that all members of the school community are aware of this policy, its purpose, procedures, and the district's commitment to equity and inclusion by fostering a positive learning environment that embraces all diverse, unique, and individual differences. Superintendent or designee is directed to ensure that this policy is communicated to students, staff, and the community. This policy will be posted on the district's website and will also be published in other appropriate school publications. Policy enforcement. The board directs the superintendent or designee to enforce this policy and create regulations and practices to implement this policy. The board will annually review the district's implementation of this policy and take appropriate action to ensure compliance with and enforcement of this policy. So I apologize that took a little longer. That took a little time to read, but I feel like it's important because this is a new policy that it actually has a full first reading. It's posted on the website under our agenda if people would like to review it. And we can talk about it when we get to that section of our agenda tonight. Okay.
Policy.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, great. So now we're going to transition to some actionable items on the agenda. So Adam.
So we're very excited to have Jillian McCrae joining us as our new professional developer for DEI at the secondary level. Jillian's known to us because for years, the Board of Education has approved consultant contracts with Jillian. She's helped us develop our SUNY race course here at Greeley. So she's worked with our faculty and professional development team before, and she's just fantastic. Extensive knowledge, background in teaching high school. She's been at least 18 years as a high school teacher in a nearby district, and extensive training for herself and background in equity work. So we have her, you'll see her on the agenda. We have an agreement for her to do some work. She officially starts when our teachers start in September, but as a professional developer, our professional developers do a lot of work over the summer. So the agreement that you have there is basically to be able to compensate her up into a certain amount so she could do some professional development work with our team over the summer and provide that support for curriculum and whatnot. So that's one thing. And we're really excited to have Jillian with us. And then the second thing that you'll see there is Andrew Taylor will be joining us as of July 1st, but as you know, Josh will be transitioning to the Assistant Superintendent for Business role. So Andrew is able to provide some days of support for us in this kind of consultant for Director of Technology and Innovation. So Andrew will join us officially, as I said, on July 1st. You can see his background and experience there. It's extensive experience. He's 9 years as a Director of Tech in a neighboring district. We've known him for a long time and worked with him across the kind of district boundaries. So we're really excited to have him. And this will allow us to access him for a few days between now and July 1st. So we can kind of onboard him and get him working, especially as Josh transitions out of the current role that he's in.
And so I just want to take this moment. This is Andrew Lennon's last meeting. So I want to thank Andrew for his work here in the district. So thank you, Andrew. Josh will be joining us at our next meeting as the Assistant Superintendent for Business. So we wish you well. And we welcome Josh to the table. And we're actually going to transition and invite Josh, Sandy, and Joe up here because we're going to move into our safety presentation for the evening. So Sandy and Josh will present some of the recommendations from the Horace Greeley High School Safety Task Force that has been meeting over the course of the school year. And then I'm going to transition into some recommendations that I have moving forward into next school year based on the concerns that have been raised to the Board of Education and to me regarding how we are planning for our future with regards to school safety. And also based on some feedback that we've received from our community and from our staff in a recent survey that was shared by our consultant agency with the community last week. So I'm gonna move over to share this with Josh, who's going to lead the Horace Greeley High School presentation.
Great. So Sandy and I started a Horace Greeley Safety Task Force in recognition that we were not going to be able to have a single point of entry at the high school because of its campus. And as part of that, we said that we want to figure out some actionable items that we could do to make Horace Greeley safer for our students, our faculty, and our staff members. So we put together a safety task force that involves parents and teachers, the chief of police, our school resource officer, BOCES. Joe was on the team, I was on the team, Sandy was on the team, to meet a bunch of times to come together to create some of these actionable items.
We made sure that we were well scheduled with 3 meetings. We did not want to take a long period of time so that we could be targeted and focused and really begin implementation of many of the items. So we had 3 meetings set up throughout winter and spring. And really, when it came to the brainstorming and discussion, we ended up with 3 buckets of areas of improvement. And that would be to the physical safety of our students, student accountability, and surveillance of the campus.
Hi.
I know it's hard. I think the fan, maybe we can't hear.
Pull it closer to us. And
Yeah, that would
is
be
that
great.
better?
Thank you.
Yeah,
So everyone can
perfect.
hear. The fan is drowning some of this out.
So our initial recommendations for physical safety, we talked about resistant film in specific areas, window shades in specific areas like the GLC, door alarms, critical response mapping, expansion of the PA systems, and increased number of phones. And what you see in white has already been completed. And on the bottom, we have other recommendations to increase signage on exterior and interior of the building. For example, like numbering each classroom and door, enhance really driveway safety, and lockdown emergency alerts on all digital screens. And we're in the progress of working on that.
So other things we had discussed is around student accountability. And so some of the things are, we want to know where the students are at all times. So if there's a lockdown, there's now QR codes around the building for students to scan to state where they are and state their location so that we know where each student is. We also implemented an emergency notification for students so that they could get notifications when there is a lockdown, when there is anything through the current systems that they have. And we're working on and then we'll talk a little bit about a plan for on-site monitoring systems to know when students enter and exit campus, and a student ID system, whether that's physical ID as an app on their phone or QR code. So as students move around, move on-site, off-site, we can have a semblance of where everybody is.
And for Greeley, we know it's important that students maintain their independence and their ability to move around campus freely. So we were really taking that into consideration to find unique ways to keep track of where everybody is, but still help maintain that feeling of that independence that the students so value at our building.
So the other pieces that we have is around surveillance. So we wanted to increase camera coverage around the school. And also the Newcastle Police Department has a district laptop where they could view a live feed of our cameras if there's an emergency, so that we can get support from the police department as they come on site. And some things that we'll talk about in a minute are adding some license plate readers as people come off campus, so we know that every car that's on and off campus, and a pre-registration system for visitor access. So I want to talk about a system. As part of our process, we evaluated a few different systems that could hopefully achieve the goals of having this idea of knowing where people are, knowing what's on campus, knowing what's happening around campus, but maintaining the freedom. And we came across this program, School Pass, which other schools have been using, and it does a lot of different things around school safety. But some of the things that we're going to talk about, we're only going to implement a couple of them to start. The first one is adding a license plate reader to the front of Greeley. This is a closed license plate reader system. So if we know that Greeley students and teachers already register with us their plates so that we know who's parking on campus. So as they come on campus or as they leave campus, we'll know exactly when students and faculty are coming on and off campus for safety purposes. We also can register to the system if there's someone that should not be on campus, so that it sends an alert to our security guards and our administrators to know that there's a vehicle on campus that shouldn't be on campus. And then, of course, if something happens, then we have an idea of everybody that's around, who went across drove off for lunch, who is back, who was off campus in the afternoon. And then we also are looking at having a student sign-in system that we want to start to pilot that is on students' phones, so they can almost tap in and tap out. There'll be an option to have an ID or sign in physically, but they can also use their phone as they walk off campus to go across the street. At the front entrance, have them tap out so that we know every student that left campus and came back to campus. So this system does this and a lot more, but these are the first two pieces that we think can make a big impact on the campus. And just to show you a couple of things, there's a student and a parent app. We're not going to be rolling out that yet, but I just want to show everybody that parents can register and we start to think about attendance on an app rather than sending an email to the attendance office to say, oh, my child is out today, my child didn't say they're going to be late today. And there's a potential app for that. So I just want to show a little bit more of what the system can do as an option.
So now I'm going to move into the district-wide safety updates and enhancements, and then we could take questions when we're all through the presentation. Does that sound good
Yeah,
to the board?
sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So here we go. I went backwards. Let me go forwards here. Okay. So first I want to just talk about personnel enhancements, because I know this is at the forefront of many of our community members' minds. So we are going to continue our security guards and assignments unarmed at our elementary and middle schools the way that it currently is, which we have one guard assigned to our middle schools and our elementary school buildings. We have multiple guards assigned to Greeley, and then we are going to have a school resource officer assigned specifically to Greeley. That is Michelle, and that will we will have an SRO continue in that space full time moving into next school year. Our enhancements are that we are going to add a shared school resource officer at the elementary schools and one shared school resource officer at the middle schools. And we will be strategic about when we're placing, where we're placing those officers based on where they're assigned for in a specific day. So for example, if we have a officer assigned at Bell Middle School, we will assign the elementary officer on the other side of campus at one of the other elementary schools, not necessarily at the elementary school closest to Bell on that particular day. So we're going to be really strategic about where we're placing our school resource officers, because I know response time was a concern that was shared by many members of our community as we went through our focus groups and we looked at our survey data. We also are reassigning and reconfiguring our social workers. And so now Bell and Severn Bridges will each have their own social worker moving into next school year. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next few slides. Okay, let me move. Some other things I just want, we do a lot, and we have done a lot with safety and security in this district. So I just want, just as a couple of infrastructure reminders. So we're going to continue with our electronic locks. They'll be in all of our buildings. We'll have lockdown pull stations in all of our buildings. If you leave here, you can see what that looks like. They're right in the hallways. We're going to continue with our door alarm project. We're going to be putting alarms on our exterior doors to prevent propping. We are adding additional cameras at the secondary schools, as you know, through our conversations at the in the budgetary process. And then as Josh has just mentioned, we have given the Newcastle PD access to our cameras in the event of an emergency on site in their station. Our enhancements moving forward is that we're going to be adding some fencing. We will be piloting the license plate surveillance project at Greeley, and then we are going to pilot that geofencing project with our kids with their IDs, and we'll look at how that goes for the district, and then we'll look at potentially expanding that throughout the district based on the pilot at Greeley. Normally we start small and then we expand out once we get a handle on the system if we feel like it makes sense for us. So now I want to talk about how we're going to fund this. So some of these costs are not in the budget currently. So I just want to kind of share with you our thinking around how we're going to make this happen. So we have budgeted for our security personnel, for SRO officer next year at Greeley, for our door alarms, the additional cameras, and we're going to install an electronic gate type system over by the gym. And so we have that planned for our electronic locks are in the capital project, so that doesn't impact our budget next year. And our social worker is being reassigned from the high school, so that's not going to impact our budget either. What is going to impact our budget are the addition of the two shared SROs, the school pass system at Greeley, and the additional fencing. And we're still trying to figure out where that's going to be, but we have some ideas of where we'd like to start that, and so we're going to work on that internally ourselves. So it's easy for us to make some adjustments in the operation and maintenance budget to support the fencing. It's easy for us to make some adjustments to technology. What's harder is to fund the SRO because it comes out of the contractual line. So in order to do that and still have a balanced budget, we are going to use the two contingency elementary positions, which equates to about $225,000. And then we have about $50,000 saving from the administrative salaries that we're going to allocate towards supporting these two additional school resource officers in our budget. Then I just want to show the community where we are with elementary sections right now, because those two positions are in the queue to support kindergarten in case enrollment goes up and we need to add a fifth section in Roaring Brook and West Orchard. So we're not in a space right now that needs to happen. So I just kind of want to show everyone where we are with our numbers, but we are going to keep monitoring this to see if we need to make any adjustments. But it's important for the community to realize that in order to respond to the needs that are being voiced to us to support more policing in our schools, that money needs to come from somewhere. So this is where it's going to come from at this point in time. So then the question might be, well, what about moving the social worker down from the high school to the middle school? Is there enough support up here? So I just kind of want to show you the clinical support throughout the district. So each elementary school has a psychologist. The middle schools each have one psychologist, 3 guidance counselors, and now they'll each have 1 social worker. And then the high school has 3 psychologists, 8 guidance counselors, and 1 student assistance counselor on staff. And then, of course, we have Tanuke Kolpa, who works throughout the district as our DEI guidance counselor. So the high school's already been able to reassign students who are on the social workers caseload to help support the transition. So we're able to cover everything that we need to and provide that extra support at Bell and at Seven Bridges. And I strongly recommend that we do that based on where we are currently. And so that is the end of the safety and security update. So at this point, I'd like the board, if you have questions, if you want to share your thinking around what I've presented. After this meeting, I plan to, there's some planning and some work I need to do with Jim Carroll if we are going to go in this direction. So I need some guidance from the board as to how you're feeling about, you know, what I'm presenting tonight for your consideration.
I can start and go down the line. This has been a very complex set of moving parts here with safety and security, as everyone knows, and everyone knows that we take it extremely seriously. We really, all of the board members have spent a lot of time looking at data and research and our budget and talking to safety and security experts and hearing from the chief of police. And we've had our meetings and we have survey results, and we really look at all of this because there are a lot of factors, and you know, it's been our biggest, you know, batch of mail during the entire year, and we understand it. We live in this community with everyone. We know that people are frightened because when you turn on the television and you see the gun violence in this country, it is frightening. So we as a school district are really trying to keep our students as safe as possible, given the constraints of lack of regulation on certain firearms, what our budgets are. And I think that we really very much represent, you know, you elect all of us to sit up here and represent you. And I don't think you'll be surprised to know that we really do accurately reflect, and as we sit around and talk, what the differing viewpoints are from a lot of the community members. You know, there are some of us that may want an SRO in every school. Some may feel that we don't need it, that that's not the most effective means of security, and some of us fall in between, and that pretty much represents the entire community when we sit down and talk about this. So we had an executive session recently where we went over this, and I support this plan. I want everyone else has an opportunity to weigh in on this, and some of it we know is very difficult for the community to understand in terms of how much information we can push out and trying to get everybody to understand how we get to where we are. I mean, we've had people come up and say, you know, you have to have an SRO in every school because the response time is too far, the police station's downtown. What they don't realize, and sometimes it's just because we have these conversations and we can't push out the information, that our police department has people patrolling all day long, and it's very strategic. So when they say we can get to any school in 2.5 minutes, they mean it, because it's not that all of the police cars are coming from downtown. And so a lot of community members don't know that. There are little nuances like that, a lot of information that everyone up here has that people don't understand. Yes, there are, you know, SROs in our police department that have been, you know, taken the SRO course, but when we take someone out of the police department to put them in our school, Chief Carroll needs someone else to go out on patrol. You know, it's moving parts for him. It's moving parts for us to pay for a budgeted position that isn't in our budget. So we look at all of this, again, through the lens of what can we do to keep our students safe and do something that will actively and effectively, we think, keep them safer. So we really took a lot of time and put a lot of effort into this, and there have been a lot of discussions, and I believe that we're on board with this. I know that you've had conversations with Chief Carroll and the town that supports a lot of these measures going forward. So I just want the community to know how seriously we take this and how everyone's position is considered, from the people who want more officers in our school to people who really feel there should be more efforts on spending money on mental health of our students. And all of that is supported, I feel, in what's up here. So I just wanted to sort of throw that out there and let everybody else make some comments as they feel they would like to.
Yeah, I mean, safety and security has always been important. It's been important. It's been important for the last 10 years I've been on the board. This is the most I've ever heard us speak about safety and security. We don't talk about it. It's not something we should be talking about in public. I understand the community wants us to talk about it, but by speaking about safety and security in an open meeting like this, it almost does the exact opposite. The only thing I would say, I like the plan, Christine. I would encourage you to go back to Chief Carroll to really understand the costs that we pay for SROs and understand, that we're responsible to the community for spending the tax dollars that we receive to educate our students as well as supporting them safety-wise. But I think the police department has to understand that, we don't have unlimited funds and that they have to try and give us the best deal we can get. So I'd just like you to go back and make sure that we're getting a good deal from them.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Warren. I also, I should add, I feel like we should do a one-year contract with the two shared positions. The school resource officer position at Greeley is a 3-year contract. I think because of where we are right now, I think that this is just like the license plate pilot and the student pass pilot. I think we need to evaluate where we are at the end of at the end of next year to determine like what is our next best step moving forward. So
I think a one-year contract is more prudent,
yeah.
unless he wants to give us a multiple-year contract with prices reducing every year. But I don't think that's happening.
And there, I just want to add, because, all of us, I'm sure all of you have friends in different counties in Westchester, in different states. Every district does this a little differently. And some have SROs, some don't. Some are completely paid for by the town. Some have a hybrid version. There are different models, throughout our county, our state, throughout our country. So there are a lot of different ways to do this, and that's why I think it's prudent to do what we think is the right thing for our district now, and maybe reevaluate in a year in terms of cost, effectiveness, and a number of other factors. So, go ahead, Kaylee, if you want to say anything.
So, I also support the plan, knowing and understanding, like Christine said, the fact that this is not a structure or system that will stay this way forever, exactly this way. It will be reassessed, continually revised and updated, as we do with everything here in our district. I also would like to add that our school board should not be the only one to burden this responsibility around what I believe is a public safety concern. So we need to look at this more broadly, just like Jane just mentioned, looking at it with the town, because there are districts that they don't pay for a penny of it. So this is something, not to say we don't want to be responsible, but we care about our students, we care about our student and faculty safety, but we have to also be responsible about how we can support the SRO or other safety measures by looking at it in a bigger picture.
So, I guess I'll start by saying I applaud the comprehensiveness and seriousness that we took to examine all the possible interventions that we could put into place. I guess I represent the contingent that remains skeptical about allocating programmatic dollars towards SROs, because in my judgment, the evidence doesn't support their value. And that doesn't mean I don't care about school safety. It doesn't mean that I don't think that there's many things that we could do. I think I'm excited to see what happens with some of the other improvements that have been mentioned, but I hope we can just think carefully about the value we might get from proceeding with shared officers in the community. We don't need to relitigate all of the research that's been shared and discussed at many town halls and other meetings that we've had. I want us to make evidence-informed decisions about everything that we do. And perhaps the evidence will change over time that will show how SROs are effective, but at this point, I still don't see it, and that we're trading academic dollars to get this concerns me. I know when we look at thought exchange, we look at community input, we often aren't putting those concerns side by side with safety concerns and asking people to make a forced choice like we've had to do in this plan. And so I'd be curious to keep monitoring that and keep talking to the community to understand, well, we want excellence in the classroom, we want excellence in how we know and are responsible for each of our students, but if we're subtracting teaching staff in exchange for security staff, how do we balance that? And I remain, I'll say, skeptical for now that we're making the right call here.
I also support the plan, but share actually some of the concerns raised maybe in also a different direction. I would have actually supported additional SROs, but also agree with Ryan that it's upsetting that it has to come out of the pedagogical budget, and agree with Kaylee and Jane's points that there are many different districts that are handling this in very different ways. And so I'm very supportive of this being a one-year contract written as we're doing it, so that we can also take this year to explore options for funding safety, whatever that program, evolves to look like in this district, through different means, because it shouldn't be a choice between pedagogical dollars and safety dollars. Like we as a school district shouldn't bear the full burden of keeping our students safe. Like that is and that's something, that I've mentioned before. We've brought forth in advocacy meetings, like there are a lot of entities responsible for keeping our communities, including our kids, safe. And that money, as much as I probably come out on the more in favor of more SROs end of it, I also feel pretty strongly that money shouldn't be coming exclusively from pedagogical budgets. So I think that this is a good plan for the coming school year. I also just want to mention, because I know it's something that we talked about and Dr. Ackerman talked about in terms of positioning SROs, but also in terms of the police department generally. They know where their personnel is, and they know where additional other resources should be to make sure that there aren't gaps in coverage. And so, that's something that I don't know if you feel comfortable expanding on a little bit, but just the fact that we're not going to be leaving, or they're not going to be leaving any school in an uncovered position.
Joe, it's hard because you're trying to explain things, but you're also trying to
Not explain
Not
things.
reveal information that would make us less safe.
So
Exactly.
even before we had any SROs, I was really comfortable, and Joe, you've also been in these conversations, with the response time of Newcastle PD to any of our buildings from their hub. So I mean, that to me, although that was brought in as a concern from our community based on our interactions with Newcastle Police, that wasn't necessarily a concern for us. Would you like to add to that?
Yes, sure. So, like you said, before we had SROs, we've had patrols through our schools on a regular basis, and it's part of their, daily post orders. They're going through our schools, and they still are now. So they are very in tune to where their officers are and how far they are from each school at all times. And I've always been comfortable with that, even prior to having an SRO here.
So this is going to be an enhancement to that and a benefit, but it doesn't. It's not the driving force behind this decision based on our experience and what we know through our relationship with the Newcastle PD. But we absolutely will be mindful of that in scheduling.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
can I just clarify one other thing, going back to Josh's presentation? because you talked about the QR codes and the notifications that the students are getting at Greeley. And I just wanted to clarify, because I know we've had it explained to us and it sounds like a great system, that they're getting this primarily through their own phones that they're carrying anyway, right? Like this is not an additional.
Yeah, so all of this is through the phones that they're carrying and an app that they would download and the notifications that they're getting. And they're already getting the notifications via the Parent Square notifications or text message and the Canvas app that most of our students already have on their phones. So there's no new equipment for anything that we're implementing. It's all cloud-based, software-based.
What are we going to do with lost or stolen IDs or phones or?
Yeah, so they could be disabled at any time. So that's the great thing about this system, that it's a live system. So if someone is scanning their ID and it's already been lost or reported stolen, the person who receives that scanning is going to say, oh, this ID and this phone was reported lost or stolen. And so don't let them go. And generally, since the front gates are by our security guards, they'll be able to call an administrator or call Sandy to handle that.
Thank you.
Can I also, I don't want to make an assumption, but are we assuming that every student has a smartphone?
No, we're not assuming that at all. That's why they could either use their smartphone or we will issue them a card that they could tap.
And for certain students, we can have the teachers can sign in for them, friends sign in for them. In our recent lockdown drill, we had well over 1,200 students sign in so that we knew where they were during the drill. So it was very successful.
You said one of the other, Josh, shouldn't every student be issued an ID?
Yeah, so in this case, every student will be issued either an ID or show that they're going to have the ID on their phone. So one or the other, they'll have a choice.
Okay.
I just want to go back to the elementary section slide because this is going to be a big question, or people might be thinking about this. So there is one additional position to add here somewhere. So I'm going to continue to watch this over the summer, and then that position will be added in to reduce the class size of the largest section that we have there. So we have it in case one of the kindergartens go over 20. We have it in case one of the first grades go over 23. We have it in case one of the second through fourth grades go over 25. The problem's going to be if we have two, then I'm going to have to look at who has the lowest class size based on their thresholds, and I'm going to have to move a section. So like these are real decisions that we have to make because we're moving in this direction, which we're going to do. But I just want people to kind of understand the financial impact of making this decision right now on the program. And this is where it needs to come from, because this is where the wiggle room is. It's not in any other, it's not in the middle schools and it's not in the high schools, because we're below threshold in many of these grade levels, which we did intentionally. And one of the other issues for us is that this is not an exemption under the tax cap. So it goes right in there. So it's some things you can pull, it doesn't impact your levy because it's exempt and your levy can go up, but it won't get you to your limit. But this is added to the total amount that we can bring into the limit. And so I've been meeting and advocating to have security and safety.
I was going to mention that, like in terms of that
as
being an exemption
for us, but right now it's not. So it just
Right.
adds another financial complication on this, which is why I hear the advocacy for maybe a different level of partnership.
So who else can advocate for this, Christine? I mean, in the past, the PTA's advocated for things for us.
Maybe all the people who asked if there's anything I could do to help.
I know.
One thing you could do to help.
I know.
But really,
But it's
no, I
serious.
mean, it
Yes.
is.
But I think
It
we
would
need-
help.
I think we need like a specific group or organization going to the state and advocating for us. And I mean, in the past, it's been the PTA. I'm not trying to throw more work on the PTA.
But I agree with Warren. There's a lot of advocacy, and we respect it and we applaud it. And sometimes we just think it might be more helpful to redirect it to people that can really make changes that impact us. And the problem is that we say this all the time. we live in this community. We want the same things as all of our friends and neighbors and community members want. And so we want our kids safe. We want to do what we can financially to keep your taxes down and your class sizes small and all of that at the same time. And it does seem like a bit of a shell game sometimes. It's very complex. And I really applaud everyone here who works on this budget from the beginning of the year until it gets passed. And this really is the wiggle room. It is not as if we can say, well, we can throw in the more teachers and throw in the SROs and pay that and come in under the tax cap. It's actually not possible. And all of us who look at these numbers all the time know that. And we also understand that it's very hard for the community to understand that. But we just want everyone to know that is the work we're doing. That is part of our job, to look at these numbers and tell you the truth of what they can take and what they can't. So any kind of advocacy like we've talked about getting the state to kick in or the state to make it an exemption, and all of it cannot fall on the school district. And that's why there are different models in terms of support from town police services, et cetera, because we're here to educate the kids, and we can't take care of all of this, and we're trying to do everything we possibly can to cover everything that we can. So
I think what you said also, Christine, is that you're looking at this at the elementary level, because all funds are fungible, but we can't move funds from high schools to middle schools to elementary schools back and forth. Just when people say, well, I need this now, we have all our children we have to educate. We have to look at the entire district.
Yeah. I'm really trying to present something that's balanced. Like, I'm trying to honor our budgeting process where we really committed to reducing elementary class size, not only based on feedback from our parents, but from our teachers at the elementary level. Then I'm trying to respond to a survey where we had a lot of people advocating for SROs in each school. Then I'm trying to balance that with, like, there's some real progressive technology out there that might accomplish some of the goals that our community has to feel safer, that we can leverage in a way that makes sense, not only for this campus, but for all of our campuses. So what I'm trying to do, which I know that not everyone will agree with or even appreciate, is provide a balanced response to a real identified need that we're all concerned about, but there's no one way to solve or address that problem. And so I would encourage anyone that has a concern or a question, or they want to talk a little bit more about this, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Joe Gramando, you can reach out to your principal, and we can have a more extensive conversation about it. It's hard when you're trying to talk and you're being filmed and it's going to be online about what you can and what you shouldn't say. We're trying to, it's like a fine line here, but there's been a lot of thought into what's being presented tonight, and I'm hoping that people at least understand that whether you agree with us or not, our intention is to make sure that we are providing the safest possible environment for our students, with also understanding what works in schools and then what's on the horizon that we can use to accomplish some of the same goals with technology.
And you've had discussions with Chief Carroll, and we want to be aligned with the police department, and we're all in support of this methodology moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
So thank you. And then,
Anything
so
else?
just, anything else? So I want to thank Sandy and Josh and Joe for their help. This is not easy. It's not easy to navigate this work, and especially Sandy and Josh, the high school remains complex, and so we're going to keep working at it, and we've made a lot of changes. So thank you both
Thank you
for
so
being here
much.
tonight. And then I just want, we have a lot coming up. We have the prom tomorrow. Sandy's got to get home. She's got to be at the senior
I know, bye.
Next week, we got our senior recognition ceremonies. We got our athletic awards. We have performances. We have graduation next weekend. And then I just want to remind everyone that June 19th, we're closed for Juneteenth. And so there's a lot happening before our next board meeting, and we're really excited to end the school year strong and to celebrate our seniors. So again, thank you, everyone. And that's the end of the superintendent's report.
Okay. So that moves us on to committee reports. What do we got?
I have nothing.
We had a health and safety committee meeting yesterday. That was yesterday. And discussed a lot of what has already been discussed, as well as looking at some traffic amelioration possibilities at Greeley, because nobody's happy about the traffic situation at Greeley, and apparently the bus remains an unpreferred choice
Of transportation, yes.
transportation for our Greeley families. So that is something we talked about. And we had a Green Committee meeting last Wednesday. And we discussed, we heard from a great group of students who have been working on reducing the use of plastics, particularly in our cafeteria and our cafeterias across the district. And we had a really good conversation with them about not only reducing the use of plastics in the cafeterias, but also about re-upping our commitment to composting across our buildings and making sure that our water refillers, which are plentiful around the district, are cold, because they will not use them if they are not cold. And other means to encourage students to be happy making sustainable choices. And we also, I had a community member reach out to me about potentially working with the Green Committee on sort of a task force basis on the electric school bus issues in conjunction with students who are working on the issues. So we talked about that potentially being a good idea, and we're gonna look at that and reach out to community members potentially over the summer to get, anybody who wants to help with this stuff. We love help, so that's
Okay.
Hillary, may I add, just with the electric school bus legislation, we are still waiting for more guidance to figure out how to move forward with that. We contract with our bus company, and so for us to just start to pay for electronic buses that aren't our, but we don't own them, that's complicated. So the conversations are great, and we continue to advocate on a superintendent level for more guidance from the state to help us really begin to plan for how to do this well, particularly when you don't own your own bus company. So.
Right, and there's students who have been working on this apparently as part of their classwork all year, so they are
Everything, give me some ideas.
game to try to help us navigate this, knowing that it is a complex issue.
Great.
Ryan, do you have some?
We did a policy committee
Right,
thing, but
and
we
we'll
already
probably-
discussed
and we'll
policy,
talk
so
about-
I think we
right.
got that covered. But the other one was wellness held its last committee meeting for the year. We celebrated the accomplishments of the food tastings that we ran across the different buildings.
How was that?
It sounded like it went pretty well in most buildings. Apparently, there's a few tweaks to improve the outcomes. That in the case of the high school, for example, doing it when it's colder, so there's more kids inside that will try it, as opposed to being out and about at. So picking a bad weather day, I guess, was sort of the goal to get more participation. A lot of good discussion about what could be done to improve on that. Also, discuss some topics for next year that the committee could take up, including working on the state of the snacks that are available to students at the various levels, and how the choice had changed throughout the year. As many community members know, ice cream is a big thing at elementary schools lately, and so wanting to discuss that and understand, working with food service, like where are the choices there, and how do we make sure we're offering healthy options on certain days or most days. And also an interest in discussing vending machines and things like that around the district, and how they're stocked and how they're functioning, not functioning, stuff like that. So there's plenty of fodder for the next committee to pick up in the fall.
Ice cream vending machines?
Yeah, well, that didn't come up exactly, but that sounds like an interesting one. Yeah.
Right. Dippin' Dots
Yeah.
from way back when? Okay, thank you. I know we had communications, Kaylee, do you want to say anything about that? Or we had our last communications advisory committee meeting for the year, and we really do appreciate our community members who help us and tell us how effective our communications are, whether it's a budget newsletter, whether it's communications that go out from the school regarding, incidents or just basic information, et cetera. And we really value the input. We realize what's being taken in, how we can get it out there better, how we can say things better. We're always looking for better ways to maybe explain why we communicate what we do, when we do it, what we're guided by, what information should be passed out for each school particularly, what should go out district-wide, and all of that. So we're constantly discussing better ways to push out information to the point where everyone understands what's going on but doesn't feel overwhelmed by the messaging. So we really appreciate that and are always looking for better ways so people get what they want and need, the information they need in the most efficient way possible and understand our rationale for doing things. So anything you want to add about that, Kaylee? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Warren,
I do have a
anything?
boosters update, though.
What? Oh, boosters. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So we had our last meeting of the year yesterday, Tuesday, right? Okay. And the boosters announced that Camp Shropshire, the varsity boys soccer coach, and the varsity assistant coach of boys lacrosse was selected to receive the 2023 Excellence in Coaching Award.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, so Greeley ski coach James May, also cross country and track and field coach Steve McKinney, who was just at the
Retirement celebration, yes.
We're also nominated, but all are highly accomplished coaches respected by community of student athletes, parents, and fellow coaches, but they had to pick one, and
Right.
this is how they made a decision. And the president of the boosters, Mike Rose, will share and highlight why they chose Coach Camp Shropshire in the end. And they will all be recognized at the Senior Athletes Award ceremony on Tuesday, June 13th next week. And all are invited. It starts at 5:15. And this event is held to celebrate all of our senior athletes and is open to all. 5:15, light refreshments and college athlete commitment celebration, and then followed by 6 p.m. of ceremony recognizing all the senior athletes, the managers, and the teams. No RSVP needed. It's at the Greeley Gym, so everyone's invited. And just to say, the current Boosters board members have been working really hard preparing for this amazing event and have been working around the clock putting together shadow boxes that they're going to gift the athletes. And everyone seems very excited to see all of this come together next week. Also, the Greeley Sports Boosters Board also announced and elected their new slate of officers for the 2023-24 school year.
Great. All right, thank you. Warren, anything? Nothing? Facilities, whatever? I think that does it for committee reports. Okay, that brings us to our public comment period. We always welcome public comments. We ask that everyone limit their remarks to 3 minutes. If you have something you would like to comment on, you can step up to the mic. We ask that you give us your name and information. We also can always be contacted via email or phone if there's something that you wish to discuss with us further. And following the completion of the entire public comment period, the board may make some comments or have a discussion regarding any comments presented. So if anyone would like to speak, please step up to the mic.
My name is Joe Ferrara. I'm the current Vice President and 12-year trustee of the Putnam Valley Central School District Board of Education. Dr. Ackerman, elected community members of the Chappaqua Central School District, good evening. Sadly, I stand before you today as a representative of the Putnam Valley Central School District, deeply concerned about the recent actions between our districts. It is with a heavy heart and a sense of righteous indignation that I address the matter at hand. We in Putnam Valley have always prided ourselves on nurturing a robust educational community driven by dedicated teachers, supported parents, and enthusiastic students. However, our pride has been marred by the recent actions of a former principal from Putnam Valley High School who made the conscious decision to leave our district and join the Chappaqua School District. What followed has been a disheartening series of events that have shaken our community. Not only did this former principal decide to leave Putnam Valley, but she also chose to poach many of our talented teachers to join her here at Chappaqua. This exodus of education has profoundly impacted our students, our school culture, and the overall educational experience we strive to provide. It is particularly disheartening to note that the vast economic disparity between our districts. While Chappaqua enjoys the privilege of high wealth and resources, we in Putnam Valley are predominantly a middle-class community with no tax base. We simply cannot match the extravagant salaries offered by Chappaqua, and as a result, we've become easy prey for your recruitment efforts. We do not have the luxury of a community that passes budgets with a near 80% yes vote. What is truly offensive and deeply personal about the situation is a pattern of behavior we have witnessed from Chappaqua. It is not the first time Chappaqua has raided neighboring school districts poaching untenured or newly tenured staff. Doing so undermines the development and training programs we have painstakingly put in place, leaving us to pick up the pieces and find replacements at significant cost to our district. Chappaqua repeated reliance on this purchasing power to build its faculty and teaching staff speaks volumes about its own deficiencies. If Chappaqua is unable to develop its own educators from the ground up, it raises serious questions about the commitment to fostering a strong, stable, dedicated team. In Putnam Valley, along with many other districts in the region, we are victims of Chappaqua aggressive recruitment tactics. We are angry and resentful and believe Chappaqua should be ashamed of its actions. The principal, the superintendent, and the board of Chappaqua are all complicit in this activity, and we implore you to take a hard look at the consequences of your action. It's time for the Chappaqua Central School District to reflect upon its role as an educational leader in our region. Instead of relying on the poaching of talent from other districts, we urge you to invest in the growth and development of your own educators. Encourage and support the cultivation of teachers who will dedicate their careers to serving the students of Chappaqua without causing harm to neighboring communities. One sentence left.
You know what, we can agree to give you just one additional minute to finish up, but we have to
It'll-
vote on that. So
it'll
give
take
us-
2 seconds.
Give us 1 second.
Sure.
I move.
Do we move second? All in favor? Okay, you have an additional minute to finish your
Thank you
statement.
very much. Let us come together as responsible stewards of education to foster an environment of collaboration, respect, and fairness. Our students deserve better, our teachers deserve better, and our communities deserve better. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you will seriously consider the impact of the district's actions on the broader educational landscape. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, Tara Ramirez, I'm president of the PTA. On behalf of the PTA, I just want to thank Jane and Warren for your service, for spending an inordinate amount of time committed to our families, our children, and we wish you all the best in your next chapter of life. Also, we want to acknowledge the retirees who were honored earlier today, and in the same vein, want to wish them all the best and thank them for their many years of service.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
We don't comment, but I will make a comment. So on behalf of myself and Jane, it's been our pleasure to serve the community, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have one last meeting in 2 weeks.
Yes, that's when you will be honored.
Oh, boy. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to make a comment? Okay. Anything else? Thank you all so much. We will move ahead with approvals and ratifications. Items 3.1 and 3.2 are both minutes. I'd like to take them together. 3.1 is be it resolved that the Board of Education accepts the minutes of the May 18th Board of Ed meeting, and 3.2, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of the May 30th, 2023 Special Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to take 3.1 and 3.2 together for approval? May I have a second? Ryan, any questions, comments? All in favor? Okay, item 3.3, which was policy 0130, district equity policy. We had our first reading. We won't be voting on that, but does anyone want to make any comments tonight? or,
Yeah, I'll make a
Okay.
comment. First of all, I agree with the policy. I think it's something that's really needed. However, to be specific, I don't think policies should be general. They shouldn't be so prescriptive. I think this policy, paragraph 3, is way too prescriptive on what we're looking to do. I think it could be changed if it said, instead of however, the district also recognizes that students, keeps going, says, the district also recognizes that students have been historically marginalized due to inequities associated with aspects of their identities and their context, period. Then you go to the next paragraph. By having everything spelled out, we could leave something out, maybe something might be misinterpreted. When you have something like this, then you have to go back and either modify the policy, or if the policy is invalid, then the administration could have other issues. So I think by making it a little more general, I think it'll be a better policy overall and do what we're trying to do.
So Warren, you're suggesting that due to the, I'm on paragraph,
Pa-
I'm under generally,
Paragraph 1, generally accepted beliefs and
okay,
agreements.
so you want to hit the period after their context is?
Correct.
Context. Okay. All right, so we could talk about that as a committee, right? Right?
So I would say, take out however, say the district also recognizes that students have been, and then leave it context, period.
Okay, well, we could talk about that.
Other than that, I think the policy is great. It really covers what I think we need to cover. I just think by having it so prescriptive and having it so spelled out, what we include or what we don't include or maybe include, I just think it could lead to more questions than solving issues. I understand you said it was given to us by NISBA, but you know what? They don't run our school district. I think we can do better than that. Other than that, that's the only change I would make in this policy, and I would, if that's changed, I would happily vote for this policy.
okay,
Any other feedback?
we can submit
Yeah.
comments to
Yeah,
you?
in writing, yeah.
I thought the term context was a little odd, actually, that word, but I didn't, that was just a comment I had. But again, if we have anything about specific words, we
Yeah.
should send to you because it'll be on our next agenda.
Do you want me to send that, Christine, or do you
I
have
have
that?
it, I wrote it
Okay,
in
great.
here.
Okay.
Thank you.
But you know, I just read it for the first time tonight, so you may have something that you think about that you want.
So we should go over that again before the next meeting and make sure that we go through it and send any comments directly to you, Christine?
And then
And the
that-
policy and to the two of you, because
Yes.
you'll meet before to Hillary and Ryan.
And other
Okay.
than that, I think the policy, I think you guys did a great job in the policy.
Well, we'll have to set one. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, if anyone in the community has feedback, you should send it to us too.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, great.
Okay.
All right, can we move
okay,
on
here we
to
go.
item 4?
I recommend 4.1 instructional as presented.
I recommend that we accept the superintendent's motion for item 4.1.
I will second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for item 4.2.
Can I have a second? Oh, go ahead, Brian, will second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda. That is where we take all together to make most effective use of our time, all of the items listed. Tonight it is 5.1 through 5.15, I believe. And these are relatively routine matters that cover a bunch of a bunch of items that we routinely take care of in the district. Just a summary of some of the things on there tonight. Our CSE summaries. We have a resolution for cooperative bidding with BOCES to lock in our oil prices, some contracts ranging from renewing our local live TV contract to our contract with our internal auditors, agreements for consultant services, disposal of items no longer useful to the district, bid awards, and the like. So that's what's a summary of what's in tonight's consent agenda. And if any board member wishes anything to be taken out of the agenda, to be voted on or discussed separately, they can do that. So at this point, would anyone like to take anything out of tonight's agenda? No. Okay, so I will make a motion for items 5.1 through 5.15, our whole consent agenda. You'll second. Any questions or comments of anything on here tonight? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that moves us on to item 6. Be it resolved that the Board of Education acknowledges the following contracts that were already approved by the superintendent pursuant to Board Policy 6085. 6.1 is an agreement with Life Touch for yearbook photo services. 6.2 is an agreement for consultant services. We discussed that earlier with Andrew Taylor, effective June 5th through June 30th. Can I have a motion to acknowledge 6.1 through and 6.2? Ryan, can I have a second?
A second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have nothing under 7 facilities, and then 8 is financials. I'd like to take them all together. We have 8.1 through 8.4. 8.1 is be it resolved that we acknowledge receipt of the treasurer's report for April 2023. 8.2 is the revenue status report for April 2023. 8.3 is receipt of the appropriations status report for April 2023. And 8.4 is acknowledging receipt of the claims auditor's report for May 2023. Can I have a motion for items 8.1 through 8.4, acknowledging the receipt of all of those reports? Anyone? I'll move. Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that brings us to notice of future meetings. Our next meeting and our final meeting for this school year is next Wednesday, June 21st, in the auditorium. And after that, the next meeting is in the summer with your new board members. That will be Thursday, July 6th at 7 p.m. That's the annual reorganization meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:43 p.m.? Move. Can I have a second? Hillary seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thank
We are
you.
adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.